And thank you so much for joining our workshop today. This is called Educational Technology, Improving Accessibility with Blackboard Ally. I also want to welcome Jake Webb and Monica Hill from Blackboard. And we are so excited to hear more about really improving our accessibility using Blackboard Ultra. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass the mic to Jake and Monica. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Monica. Ladies first.
I'm going to introduce myself quickly and then hand it to you. But I'm Monica Hill, Senior Manager of Client Experience with Blackboard. I've worked with the team there at UDC. David, this is my first time meeting you, so I'm looking forward to working with you more in the future. But I've worked with Fatma a great deal. And we have Jake Webb, who is going to be a special treat for you to hear from Jake today. He's one of our best solutions engineers here at Blackboard. So with no further ado, I'll hand it to Jake to take over, and I'll be here in the chat to answer questions. I do have to pop out for a few minutes at 2 o'clock to join another call briefly, but I'll be gone for about 15-20 minutes, but then I'll be back for the rest of the session. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for that, Monica. And so as she shared, I am a senior solutions engineer, been with the company for a little bit over or almost 8 years now. Time seems to just go so fast in education. But a lot of my experience is just around curriculum development and creating content inside learning management systems. I started using learning management systems back in 2009 from like a professional manner. Of course, I've used them earlier than that from a student's point of view, but a lot of my responsibility was just making sure that the content worked within the LMS, was accessible, and users could access it on mobile devices and things of that sort. So accessibility has been part of my goal or initiative for a very long time. And there's a as far as today's session, what we're going to be talking about is Blackboard Ally and how Ally helps to help just streamline that process for instructors, instructional designers, anyone that's either building out content natively inside of the LMS or even uploading file-based assets, from the web or something they've created themselves, whether it be PowerPoints, lecture notes, Word documents, any supplemental material that your learners are accessing on a day-to-day basis in your course. Those are probably going to have some accessibility challenges from time to time, and so we're going to talk about some what those are, and then provide some ways that the Ally can help resolve that. So, if you have any questions, feel free to post those in the chat. Monica is going to be my partner in crime today. She's going to help me answer any of your questions in chat, and then Lisa Clark should also be joining us a little bit later as well, to provide some additional assistance. So feel free to make use of the chat. We'll be monitoring that throughout today's session. But, to just do some level setting, accessibility today is a little bit of the wild, wild west when it comes to content, especially content in a learning management system. We just really don't know what we're going to get. And oftentimes we don't know there's a problem until a student complains about it. And if a student's making use of a screen reader or another type of assistive technology, and they open up your Word document or PDF and they just can't use it, for whatever reason, the first line of defense, or the first line of support really is for them to reach out to their instructor. And so it puts a lot of pressure on instructors to resolve the issue, or trying to find the right contacts there at the institution to get help and support. And so we want to help minimize that as much as possible, reducing that burden on faculty. That way students can get the help that they need in kind of a just-in-time format. And so Ally is a tool that helps bridge that gap. And it's all about helping faculty make their courses more accessible. So as you see the tagline here, accessible content is better content. And so that's our whole goal with this product or technology that's part of your Blackboard Learn LMS. So Ally does essentially three things. The first one is really around alternative formats. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of students today, they're leveraging their mobile phones to access the curriculum. They, some of those students might be using assistive technologies, such as like a tactile reading device or a screen reader. And as they come into contact with the LMS, the LMS is mobile friendly. It's friendly towards screen readers, but we just don't always know about the content that has been, either created inside of the LMS or that has been uploaded into the LMS. There are opportunities where some of that content might not be accessible. And so if someone has a poor experience, this is typically where we find it. And when it comes to that content being remediated, sometimes instructors will do that. Sometimes it might be a dedicated department there on campus. It very much varies from institution to institution. And so when a student needs to have some content remediated because they can't make use of it or can't access it based off of their impairments, then that's where we will see delays of maybe a couple of hours, if not days, for that student to be able to get that revised version of that content. And so there's been a bit of a standstill. And so, put your shoes in the student. If you're in class, you're just trying to do your work, and all of a sudden you can't open up you listen to a PDF because it's not been OCR'd or it's not a format that's conducive for a screen reader. You're stuck. You can't really, you're waiting on other people to remediate the content. And so you feel like you can't even learn, you can't progress further in the course. And so something that Ally can really help to solve, and that's through these alternative formats. And so when a student comes in contact with something that's not accessible or accessible for them, then Ally will use machine learning algorithms to automatically scan that uploaded file and also content that you create natively inside of the LMS for accessibility issues. And then it will do its best to correct all of those accessibility issues that it found. That way, that student can go ahead and have access to a new revised version of that document that they're going to be able to use with their assistive technology. And so instead of waiting hours, if not days, for remediated content, they're able to just use that self-service model to get a revised version of that content that's built specifically for them. So it solves a lot of that burden, and then also helps remove a lot of that work placed on you as a faculty member from having to try and resolve that issue for the student yourselves. Now, there are going to be some instances where faculty involvement is a necessity because there is no silver bullet. There's nothing that just solves all accessibility issues. And so there are some things that do require humans and that human input, and I'll share some of that today and what steps you can take. The second component of Ally is really just around instructor feedback. The biggest thing for instructors is that they know accessibility is important, especially if they've taught a previous course before where they've had a student rely on a screen reader or some sort of assistive technology. They know the importance of it. But maybe, for some of us, this is our first time teaching a course where we have with a student that's relying on that type of technology, and we're just not really aware of accessibility issues. And so what Blackboard does is that we'll actually automatically scan all of your content all throughout your course for accessibility issues. That way we take the guesswork out of it and there's no surprises. So even before students actually get into your course, Blackboard is going to inform you of where there are some accessibility challenges and give you some steps and tips and tricks on actually how to resolve those issues. That way you can improve the overall accessibility of your content. And then in turn, that sets you up for success. So it reduces maybe the potential number of requests you might get from students to improve your course content or fix it because of some kind of accessibility issue, whatever that may be. So we do provide awareness and guidance. The final aspect is really just around reporting. And, from an instructor's point of view, you are going to have a single report that's going to let you be able to see all of the accessibility issues in your course in one place. So instead of you having to run a scan here or there or trying to figure out where all these accessibility issues are, you'll just have access to a dedicated report where you can see all of that. So there's a quick question and from Jack on who can see this report. So there is a report built specifically for instructors that's available as a course tool within your course. But we do also have an administrative tool where maybe an accessibility services department would be able to see all of the issues across the entire Blackboard environment. And that would help institutions inform themselves and think strategically about how do they want to tackle these accessibility issues across the board. It's a great way to look around figuring out, if we want to do any kind of trainings or workshops like we're doing today to help spread awareness. That way we can maybe minimize some of the issues that are commonly being experienced or happening inside of our courses. So I apologize for using OCR. If that's a, I don't like using acronyms, but OCR is optical character recognition. And we're going to show an example of what a non-OCR document looks like today and how Ally can solve that in just a few minutes. But what we'll do now is we'll shift gears. Now that we've got a good foundational knowledge of what Ally does, our solution, we'll now dive into the actual course experience and highlight how students and faculty would use this today inside their courses. Let's see here. All right, so here I am in a Blackboard course, and we're looking at this. We're going to look at this from the student's point of view. So I'll go ahead and do student preview. And what you'll notice, there's a couple of ways that students can access content. The primary way is through the course content area here. And depending on how your courses are structured, some institutions will do it by week. They'll do it by module, chapter, lesson. I've seen some instructors will even do it by category. So they'll create a folder for all of their assignments, another folder for all of their discussions, quizzes, things of that sort. That's how they chunk out their content. So this particular course is using a weekly format, so it might be a little bit different than what you're currently doing today. But what I've done is I've uploaded some content from the web that I know is going to be problematic. That's going to have some that's going to cause some challenges for my students if they were taking a look at these resources in my course. And and so this first one we'll take a look at is a scanned image or a scanned textbook. So this goes to Dr. Brown's question, does Ally convert PDFs to OCR? And probably another way you could ask that, does Ally OCR content or scanned content? And so this is an example of a PDF, but it is essentially a scanned textbook or a scanned image. So we can see the binding in the middle of the book, the contrast issues, some of the chapter 5 has some kind of, I guess I would call like noise over it. You have some gray dots, where maybe it was in a clean scan for that particular page. As we scroll down, you also see some of the pages are slanted, and it's quite common to see things like tables or maybe some markup or highlights within it. You can even see that we got some lines from the scanner here, and the word assumptions right here is not that that easily read, some contrast issues there. So there's a lot going on within this document. But the biggest issue here is that this document has not gone through optical character recognition. So as we try and select the content on this page with my mouse, you'll see that it doesn't highlight the text. I can't grab a hold of it. And so this hasn't been OCR'd, meaning that we haven't recreated this document into a format where we can digitally select the text on the page. And so if I was a student that was making use of a screen reader, this document would be completely inaccessible for me. I would know it's there. I would be able to download it, but as soon as I opened it on my computer, it would just be like a blank page. I wouldn't be able to benefit or use it at all. And this is typically where we would start seeing those requests to faculty saying, hey, I opened up the chapter 5 textbook, chapter 5 in the textbook, and I'm not able to read it and, or listen to it through my screen reader. And so that's where a faculty would either have to maybe retype this entire document up themselves, reach out to a department that has access to some OCR technology to see if they could scan it. And all of this, again, could take a couple of hours, if not days, depending on the resources that are available there at the institution and what technologies they have. And so wouldn't it be better if we could just provide, an option for students to be able to just do this themselves? And so Ally will automatically provide an option for students to download an OCR PDF. So we will take that PDF that was not OCR'd, and then we will go ahead and transform it using our machine learning algorithms, provide students the option to OCR it themselves. And then within just a few seconds, we now have a new PDF of that textbook that is now that has been OCR'd. And so as we scroll down here, you'll see that we can actually select the text on the page. It is now being highlighted. So what that means is now the screen reader can actually select this text and read it aloud to the learner. So didn't require faculty to get involved in this particular case, for this text here. And allows that student to self-service, to be able to quickly have access to that content without having to rely on another person. So a couple of questions. How are images or photos in the PDF handled? So if there's complex visuals such as a table, we'll recreate those tables within the PDF. If there is an image within it, what we will usually do is slice that image out and bring it back in. So that image would still need to be captioned because we don't know the context on how that image is being used. So we would alert the faculty member to let them know that there are some images that they would need to add a description to. And I will show what that looks like, what that workflow looks like to add in a description for images based off of that feedback from Ally. And the last question here from Jack is, how does it read it aloud? And so what we would do, from a student's perspective, if they would want to listen to that, they could use their screen reader. There's a lot of different screen reader technologies on the market today. So they could use a technology such as JAWS. It's free. They can download it. There's also open source software built into your operating system, whether you're using a Windows computer. I don't know what it's called on Windows, but on Mac, it's I think it's called VoiceOver, or it might be maybe another name for it. But that would also help read aloud what is the software that you're using or any of the content that you're making use of. But most individuals will have a favorite screen reader that they're used to. Typically, it's the one that they first learned how to use when they first started learning how to use computers, because they're very familiar with the keyboard shortcuts and how to navigate it. But that would essentially allow the user to select the text on the PDF or that revised version and would read that aloud. Now, if they don't want to rely on a screen reader, a learner could download the audio version that Ally automatically generates. So once we OCR'd that PDF, we will create a transcript essentially for, for that document that then will be transformed into an audio version. And we're leveraging a partner technology of ours called ReadSpeaker. You might have heard ReadSpeaker before. And so ReadSpeaker, that technology we partner with, would transform that transcript into an audio format for the learner to be able to listen to. So if they don't have access to a screen reader, they could go ahead and listen to it with the MP3 format that we generate. One thing that's really nice about this is that as you think about learners, we have, your adult learners that are coming back to school. You have, that might be commuting to work, or you have student athletes that are conditioning or have kind of, complex schedules. And so every moment counts. Every little bit of slice of time that you have for studying is important. And so the audio version is great for those students as well. It's great for students that are reliant on assistive technologies where they have to listen to everything. But it's also great for your other students that, just based off of where they're at in life, where they prefer or have a preference for listening to content instead of reading it, because it's more, it works better within their time. So as you're driving to work or you're conditioning, you could just listen to the MP3 version of that PDF or that textbook that we just saw there. There's lots of other options. You have HTML, EPUB, electronic braille, Beeline reader, and a machine translated version. HTML is going to be great for those that want a better experience on mobile devices. It also is probably the best format for a screen reader user. EPUB is great for learners that want to mark up and annotate on their work, take notes. EPUB software has a lot of built-in study features, especially for those on mobile phones or tablet devices. Highly recommend that. Electronic Braille is for tactile reading devices. You could also print this out if needed to, not print it out, but if using an embosser to make Braille sheets for people to be able to read with their fingers. Beeline reader is great for those that have dyslexia or other cognitive impairments, such as ADHD. It just helps with the readability of the text. And then finally, the machine translated version will actually allow you to translate this content into over 40 different languages. So if your primary language is not English, you could easily translate this to Spanish or French or Croatian, which my friend Maria really appreciates. So lots of different options here that are available. There's a couple questions in chat. Do you have a quick guide of the accessibility options we can share with students? We certainly do. We have a dedicated help website called help.blackboard.com. And all of this is documentation geared from the student's point of view. They can easily read about all of the accessibility features built into Blackboard, and oftentimes we'll even include a video. So if they just want to watch a video, if they're able to digest that or consume that in that format, they'll have the ability, to watch those videos. But there's explanations on everything that we provide from the student's point of view. And we also do this from the instructor's point of view as well. So that's a great place to start. And then we also have an adoption toolkit. So if you have things that you want to hand out physically in the classroom or post there on campus within the hallways, that's something else that you'd also have the option to do as well to help spread awareness of that. And we can provide that as a follow up after the call today, after the workshop. There's a question from Cheryl asking if this works from their phone. It certainly does. They can leverage this from their phone. Monica's sharing some other great resources. We'll compile those all at the end of the session today to share those afterwards. But yes, this can be used on the phone. Blackboard Learn is a mobile web-based application. And so just like you can do everything else on your phone, from submitting assignments to taking quizzes, downloading these alternative formats can also be done on your phone. And I would even encourage you to download some of these alternative formats because they're going to provide a better experience on your mobile device. And to give an example of that, here's another file in this course. It's a PDF, pretty typical of scholarly work. It's in a 2-column format. We've got a title, we've got all of our different, sections of content here. This particular document, while, nicely structured, this is not probably going to provide the best experience for those on a mobile device. So as I scale this down, you'll notice that half of the content is gone, or a little bit less than half the content is gone. And that's because mobile devices, not really mobile devices, PDFs are formatted in a way that's not friendly towards mobile devices. And so if I was on my mobile phone, I'd have to do a lot of pinching and zooming to get from my left column to my right column, or I might need to zoom in because I'm having a hard time reading this, but now I have to do a lot of scrolling and then got to go back to get to the next line and then back to the next line. It's just not an ideal mobile experience at all. And so that's one of the challenges, with education today is that, while the technology such as the LMS is mobile friendly, not always is the content inside of the LMS is mobile friendly, in this case, like this PDF. And so what we will do, just like we showed earlier, is provide students with the option to download an alternative format that's going to provide a better experience. Now, one other thing to point out, or a couple other things to point out about this document, while mobility is a chief concern here related to this PDF, there are some other accessibility issues with this PDF document. And the first one of those is that this is using a 2-column layout. So faculty, as you're thinking about, the structure of your content, screen readers don't do well with multi-column layouts. So as we select the text here and it's being read aloud by the screen reader, as that screen reader is working its way down this page, instead of going back to the top of the page after it's completed this first column, it will actually just go on to the second page here and just keep reading down. The problem with that is now all of this content here on the right-hand side has been missed, and the topic has changed. The student that's listening to this is trying to follow along, and all of a sudden it's just not making sense to them. That's going to provide a very poor learning experience for those learners that are relying on that technology. Not only that, a lot of times, as a learner, I don't want to maybe have to listen to everything on the page from start to finish. I'm maybe looking for something specific as I'm doing my research or reviewing some scholarly work. And so oftentimes what people will do is tag a PDF. That way it helps with navigating the document or jumping to different sections. So this document, we have our abstract, we've got the introduction, we also have different subsections here, the observed user interactions or representing the user. I might want to be able to quickly jump to one of those sections because I'm studying on that particular topic, or I'm trying to find an answer to a question that I'm looking up. And so tagging a PDF builds out that table of contents that allows you to easily traverse or navigate that document. So when that is not the case, students have a very hard time finding what it is that they're looking for. They have to kind of do use some search features within the PDF or their screen reader, and it's more cumbersome for them, especially when you're completely dependent on listening to the software read aloud to you to be able to navigate or move around within the system. So what we'll do is we'll show how Ally solves the majority of these issues right here, just using one of the alternative formats. So as I come in here again as a student, I can go ahead and click on HTML and download that document. And within just a few seconds, Ally has created a new revised version of that PDF, but in HTML form. And so I'm now going to get a much better experience. So as we remember, when we opened up that document that was a PDF on our mobile phone, some of the content was cut off. We couldn't see everything. I had to do a lot of pinching and zooming, a lot of scrolling back and forth. But now this PDF, it's perfectly fitted for the mobile device. I can see all of that content. It's been resized. I don't have to resize that content or resize the viewing on my phone to be able to just see it. So it provides a much better experience for the learner that's doing everything from their mobile phone. The second thing that we've done to help improve things is by tagging the content. So just like we would tag a PDF, we can tag this document with HTML, semantic HTML, to properly identify things as the title or a header or a paragraph. And that's going to help improve the navigation experience. So as a screen reader user, I'm going to be able to jump from different sections of the document very easily using my screen reader. Not only that, it's also going to provide a better listening experience. So as this is being read aloud to me, it will actually read out provide some context. So it'll say things like beginning title, and then it will read out the title of the page, or beginning paragraph, and then read out the paragraph within the page. And that's all due to the fact that Ally will automatically inject semantic HTML when it's taking that PDF and revitalizing or transforming this document into a more accessible version. So we can see the H1 here in the code. I know I'm getting a little technical here, but this is all things that really help to improve that experience for learners as they're digesting this content, consuming this material audibly. And so the abstract is an H2, we have our introduction as an H2, and then we have our paragraph tag here, the P. And so all of that just helps make it easier for that content to be listened to, because it will actually chunk it, help those users compartmentalize it as they're listening to this. So Monica has stepped out, and Lisa has taken over within the chat. So thank you, Lisa. If you have questions, she'll do her best to answer those. There was, I think, one question around math equations. And so it really depends on the formatting of the math equations inside of the LMS. if or within the source material, as Monica mentioned, every screen reader is a little bit different how they read it. But math equations are something that if you're using MathML, the screen reader should be able to process that and read that aloud to the learner. But there might be some training involved that instructors would need to do to make sure that their equations are in that format. So if there is if you have a PDF document that has equations in it, or another file-based asset, and you're not using the rich text editor and Blackboard Learn, then that would require faculty to describe those equations out for the students. That way they could work through them. But if you are using the native math equation inside of Blackboard Learn, then that is going to be screen reader friendly, and those screen readers are going to be able to read out those equations. All right, so as we come in here, so this is really that student experience, probably, maybe just one more, I'll probably do one more format, one or two more formats real quick, and then we'll jump into that instructor workflow. But the reason I focus so much on this is that, if your students don't know about this, even if we can provide a quick start guide, or maybe as students go through an orientation course, whatever it may be, whatever you do to set up your students for success there at UDC, there are always going to be some examples where students just forget about it or don't realize it's there or whatever it may be. So it's very important that instructors know about how to access these alternative formats, because it can greatly reduce the work on your end, but then also give the students the level of access that they need to their content. So with this, we also have our Beeline reader version. This is this is great for students with dyslexia. You'll see that it's using gradients to break up the text here and make it help just improve the readability for it. That way, not all the words kind of blur together. But we can also, because it is using color, we need to be mindful of students that are colorblind. And so we can adjust the color to have more of a darker hue, make more use of blues, grays, and we can also leverage a kind of a night mode for those that have sensitivity to light. So for those low light situations, this is a great option for those learners. One other format, let's see here, is our EPUB format. And we'll have to restart the share real quick. And EPUB is just leveraging the ebook reader on your mobile device. And so this is just Apple Books, or Apple iBooks formerly called. You can also use Google Play Books if you're on Android devices. But what this would allow you to do is essentially we've turned a PDF into an EPUB digital ebook format. And now I can highlight text. We can see all the different colors here, change something to yellow or blue. But what's really nice about this is I can actually also add in my notes. Let's see here. Is this notes? Nope, it's bookmarks. There we go. Okay, so yep. So here's my notes now. So I can see the text that I've highlighted. And then I can see my note here, such as what I've selected or highlighted, and then what question that I might have for my instructor. So just another way for you to be a little bit more engaged with the content as you're working through it. This is also great for those learners that want to use a combination of alternative formats. It's quite common for students to not only read the text, but have it read aloud to them at the same time, kind of a follow the reader type of model. And so students will download the audio-based version of the Ally has created, and they'll also open up the digital version here. And so as they're listening to the audio, they will read along. And that can do a lot of wonders for the brain. The brain likes it when we stimulate both our eyes and our ears. Multiple inputs kind of just supercharge your memory. and it can help with just comprehension or just retaining what you've listened and read at the same time. It just makes it easier for your brain to do it. There's a lot of recent research within the past couple of years that helps support that. Now, that is different than you listening to your favorite music and trying to read. Um, so I would never recommend that, but actually listening to the audio of this being read aloud as you're reading it can do a lot for you. So there's a question on, whether or not playing an audio sample now. Let's see, I'll have to reroute my audio real quick through my speakers so that you can hear it being played. Let me just adjust that real quick. Hopefully you don't get too much feedback. Let's see, sound. Do my speakers, and let me go ahead and download the audio format. All right. And so I'm just waiting for it to generate that MP3 file, and then I will go ahead and I'll play that through my speakers so that you're able to hear that in just a minute when that finishes up. Let me jump back into the browser here. So while that's happening, this is a good point to call out here. So Ally doesn't have these audio files automatically readily available. So when the first time a learner in your course requests it, it will actually take the OCR version of that content or the HTML version of that content and then generate the audio file, the MP3 file. So this could take about maybe 30 seconds to a minute, depending on how many pages of content that we're having to generate audio for. So if you have an overly large document of like 50 to 100 pages, there could be, somewhat of a wait here. So here was just a couple of minutes for this. And we'll play this in just a second. But once that audio file has been generated, the next time a student tries to download it, it would be instant. They wouldn't have to wait for the audio file to be generated because another student or someone else in the class has already gone through that process of generating the audio format. So it can actually be a relatively quick process for other learners after that initial learner has gone it. But what we'll go ahead is play this audio format. And as I do that, I'll go ahead and open up the PDF here. We'll open up the this one here, so it'll be a little bit easier. But when I play this, be on the lookout for it providing context, because it will announce, when it's reading the title or a paragraph or the abstract. It'll provide context as that's being read aloud. And that's all because of the semantic HTML that we do. So let's go ahead and play this.
History. Begin heading level 1. Personalizing web search using long-term browsing history. Begin heading level 2, abstract.
So you just heard that. It read the title of the document, the actual file itself, and then read the title of the page itself, and then started working through it. And we'll go ahead and skip into a little bit further content. Well, I guess I should double check. Were you able to hear that through my speakers? Yep. Okay. Sounded like it. Perfect. And so it will read the page, but it will also provide context on what it's reading, which is extremely helpful. Just imagine you don't have any sight whatsoever, and you're trying to, listen to this. If you didn't have those pause breaks, it would just feel like a giant run-on sentence. It would be very hard for you to be able to follow through. So great option there. Just a few minutes to generate that MP3 format, and then anyone can download it instantly within the course. So coming back into the course experience, let's talk about the instructor workflows. As an instructor, there are going to be cases where Ally, is going to require me to do some work. There are going to be some things that only I, as the subject matter expert, can actually fix. So you saw how Ally solves a lot of the problems around presentation and structure of content. We'll make things more mobile friendly. We'll change something from a 2-column layout to a single column layout to make it more screen reader friendly. We'll inject semantic HTML to help provide context as things are being read aloud. There are a lot of things that we do automatically to just make it so that students can get, access to a more accessible version of that content. But there are going to be some instances where we're just dependent on the instructor to fix things. And so Ally will provide these little gas gauge indicators all throughout your course experience, letting you know where there are accessibility issues within your courses. And so for this particular example, I've uploaded, lots of different files here that are problematic. But let's go ahead and click on one of these items. And here we can see that we have an image that we've uploaded. And we can see that it has a score of about 25%. And what Ally is doing is letting me know what exactly is going on. Now, to answer Dr. Brown's question, this is something that only instructors see. Students do not get to see all of these accessibility issues. They're not aware of these gas gauge indicators. This is purely an instructional / course builder, type of tool. Only those that are managing or owning the course and the content would be able to see this. And so as an instructor, Ally is informing me that there's something wrong with this document or has some kind of accessibility challenge. As I open it up, it's informing me that this particular item, it's an image and it's missing a description. Now, what if I don't know what that means or why that's important? And so what Ally will do is actually help bridge that gap. It'll explain what an image description is, but then also why it's important. Sometimes, we can, know what something is, but, having that why aspect really helps to just, encourage us why, what we should do the things that it's asking us to do. And so this is going to provide, a better, experience for those screen readers. And so if you're not sure on, how to write a description or a good description, Ally will actually give you some examples. So here we have an image. And we have, in this image, we have a farmer standing in a field for grown for biofuel. And that's essentially what we're describing here. We're just describing what we visually see within the image. Now, what we would take a look, though, or need to take into consideration, though, is that sometimes the way that we describe an image is not just about what we see within the image. Context has a very important part to play, especially with lesson material that's image-based. So this image here, it's a field covered with poppies. If we were to use this image in a history class, we might focus on describing or adding a description related to World War I. Whereas if we were in an art class, we might describe the image and focus more about the artist, Van Gogh, the type of brushstrokes Van Gogh was using, some of the technique, the color palette, maybe the inspiration behind the artwork. You can see there's a very drastic difference on how we could describe this. We could just describe what we're seeing, or we could talk about all of the different nuances and everything else that's related to the image. And so that's a very important detail, but this is also one of the reasons why Ally doesn't automatically provide captions or descriptions for images, and because we don't know how that image is being used. Is it there just for decorative reasons, or is it actually something meaningful that students need to know about that helps with their overall knowledge or acquisition of skills and abilities and things related to the lesson material? And so we'll give, lots of different examples, even with graphs or charts. And, at the end of the day, sometimes images are there just for decorative reasons. They don't have any value. But as an instructor, we want to make sure that we mark that. That way there's no confusion on the students' part. They're being alerted and letting them know that there is an image here, but it's just purely there for decorative reasons. There's no value. It's not going to hinder their learning example. At all. Now, once we've learned all of that, we can come in here and go ahead and apply what we've learned. And it's not uncommon for us to see sometimes, people will try and be, will kind of do maybe low effort. And so if someone comes in here and just tries to put a file name, that's not going to provide any value to the learner. And so we'll prevent that from happening. But so let's go ahead and revise this with something that's going to be a little bit more meaningful and an accurate description of what's being displayed in the image. And so I saw a couple of you, maybe it was you, Lisa, trying to give, a good description of this image. And so here we are just essentially describing what we see. A man is sitting in an office chair in the middle of a field with his arms spread out wide. He looks like he is experiencing financial peace. And so that might be, one way of describing this. We could maybe go into further detail about the clouds and, everything else, within it. The overall, pieces, we really just want to, convey, the overall meaning or what we want users to get from that image. And so if it's a graph visual, you'd probably want to, have a description that contains all of the data in the graph. If it's, something, from like a, an artistic lens in an art class, like we saw with the Van Gogh work, you might want to describe, different techniques, color palettes, all these other details, because that's going to help that student further along in their artistic career and be able to think things, more critically from an artistic perspective. So whatever it is, like the main purpose of that image and what it is that you want users to get out of it, that's, a good thing to aim for within the description. In some cases, it's, just what you would visually see and just describing that in a way. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing some great resources there. So we'll go ahead and add that in, and you'll notice that indicator has gone from 25% now all the way up to 100%. And so there's a little bit of a gamification aspect. We've had some feedback or heard some feedback from faculty. They really like this aspect. And so when they come into their course and they see red or yellow icons, it kind of encourages them to want to go through and try and get as many of these as green as possible within their courses. And so as you fix that content, you'll see that gas gauge indicator will go from a red or yellow color to that full green color. And that lets you know that you've done everything that you can to help improve the accessibility of that document based off of the things that Ally has flagged. I need some water. So, so let's take a look at some of these other examples here. Let's go into this network security doc here. So this is a little bit different. This is a Word document, and while it does have a very similar issue to what we just experienced, this is an image that's embedded within a Word document. It's not just a standalone image. And so the way that we would fix this is a little bit different. With this being a Word document, we would actually need to fix this in Microsoft Office. And so what we would need to do now is when we take a look at the accessibility checker and we click on how to add descriptions, it's actually going to give us the choice of a few productivity apps. So if you use Office 365, Office 2016, or LibreOffice, you would click on, your productivity solution. And as we scroll down, you'll see step-by-step directions on how to add alternative text to a document in Microsoft Word and be able to save that. And so what we'll go ahead and do is we'll go ahead and download this file, this network security document. Go ahead and open up that in Microsoft Word. And we'll scroll down to that image that we saw earlier. And we'll do a new share on Microsoft Office. So now you can see my my Word document. and using those directions that Ally shared with me, I know I just have to right click on this and then click edit alt text. And so over here on the right-hand side, it will give me an option to put in a description here. Now I'm not going to, describe this the way that I should. So don't use this in in a real environment. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that same description that we used earlier, just so that we have some filler text here. But once we've added that in and save that, we can go ahead and exit out of here. And just to double check, we can edit alt text again, and we can see that that's here inside of the documents associated with this image. And so when I hit save, we'll go ahead and add that back to my desktop here. And we'll jump back into the learning management system. Where's Blackboard Learn? There we go. And we come back into our gas gauge indicator here. I could now upload a revised version of that Word document. Here it is. And what Ally will do is actually rescan this document. And you'll see that that score has now improved. And that's because I added an alternative description to that image. And so there used to be 3 instances where there were images without descriptions, but now there's only 2. So Ally will walk you through on how to fix those issues. And then as you make those updates in that original software, such as Microsoft Word, you'd save that new revised file, drag and drop it here into the inbox. Ally would rescan it, and then would let you know if there's anything else that you need to fix it. Now, because of the way that this is done, it does focus on the items that require the lowest level of effort that are going to provide the most significant value or the most value to your learners. So there's actually, in this case, there was 3 images without a description in this Word document. And so normal workflow is I would probably fix all 3 of those at once. And then when I upload this document, this would be probably up in the 40s or 50s or higher from an accessibility standpoint. I think when we first opened it, it was at 32%. After I fixed that first issue, it's now bumped up to 39%. So a lot of value there, but there's actually more than just one issue with this document. As we click on all issues, we can see that this document doesn't have headings. There's images without descriptions, and we can also see that there's some contrast issues. So there's a couple of different things that I should fix within this Word document. But as I click on these items, Ally will take me to where it is within the document. So I can see exactly what it is that I need to fix. And so in this case, we can see that there's some white text over this kind of graphical content here. And so I probably just want to remove that and think about maybe a different way of adding that content into my Word document. While visually it looks nice, it's hard. It could be hard to read, for specific users based off of that contrast. So I would just go through all of these again. If I'm not sure how to fix something, I would just click on how to fix the contrast, and it's going to give me step-by-step directions right here within Blackboard Learn, and will tell me about what do I need to think about when I am using different types of colors to draw attention to within my documents, and how to check for accessibility. There's actually a tool that you can download called the Color Contrast Analyzer, and it will let you know if certain colors are within the accessible contrast based off of WCAG AA standards. Let's see here. So we'll go ahead and exit out of this particular item now that we know how to go through and fix those individual issues by following the directions there. And the last piece is really just helping us understand what it is that understanding all of the issues essentially in one place. So right now, if I wanted to find accessibility issues based off of how this course is designed, I would need to go into every single week 1, and take a look at all of the items and see if there's any accessibility issues. And then I'd have to go into week 2 and week 3 and week 4. What we can do is provide an option under the books and tools feature here for us to be able to access our accessibility report. And this accessibility report would allow me to be able to see all of the issues in one place across all of my different modules. Now, there's not a lot of content in this course because it is a fictitious course. So we're only seeing 7 items that we scan, a couple PDFs, Word documents, images, but we're also scanning native content as well. But ultimately, what that's going to do is allow you to just have one place to come in to be able to see all of your accessibility issues in one place. And so instead of having to go hunting and finding it, it's all right here. What's nice about this too is that Ally will provide you with 2 paths. So we can go and fix all of the easy issues, things that are going to be low effort but high reward. But then there's also those areas that are lots of effort, but would also be high reward too, because these are probably the most problematic within it. And so typically faculty will go for the easier route. These are going to be things like images without descriptions, contrast issues, maybe you need to tag a PDF. And so we would just simply click on the item in question here, and it's going to give us a preview of what needs to be fixed, and then give us directions on how to do it. And as long as we follow those directions through, then it's going to improve the overall accessibility of that content. So a couple of questions in the chat. How much extra time do you think it will take to fix this particular document? Let's see here. So for the images, if you're a subject matter expert, probably 1 to 2 minutes to describe, each of those images. Documents without headings, that's just a matter of using the styles feature within Word. It'd probably take a few seconds for each of the headers to use the appropriate styles feature. And then the document with contrast issues, I always go for high contrast. And so in this case, I wouldn't even use color at all. It would just be a matter of retyping this little piece of text here just to be in the same format as what we see right here. So at most, maybe 5 to 10 minutes to fix this one file based off of the feedback here. Not too terribly long. But that will vary from document to document. But once you've gone through this, and if you are creating a lot of the materials yourself, these Word documents or other file-based assets, you won't have to be reactive. You're right, Dr. Brown. It gets easier over time, and you know what you're looking for. You'll know to make use of the styles feature in Word, how to use the alternative description features in Word, or somewhat like PowerPoint or other things as well. So as you're building out original content, you're not necessarily having to be dependent on Ally to tell you what's wrong, because you've already learned what are the things that you need to look out for. And so as you're creating content, you're doing it in a way that's just accessible from the get-go. And so that's one of the biggest things that we really like about Ally. It does help to create a culture at institutions where there is a focus on accessibility, and faculty become much more technology savvy, or not technology, accessibility savvy when it comes to their curriculum and content that they're uploading or building out inside of the LMS. And so the awareness around accessibility issues greatly increases, but then also the awareness on how to fix or prevent some of these issues from coming up gets resolved as well. Let's see here. So overall, that's kind of the 3 main components of Ally from a faculty perspective. and a little bit of the student's point of view as well, where you're going to have access to these alternative formats right here in line within the course experience. So anywhere where you see that little A icon with the downward arrow, those are alternative formats. And users are going to be able to access those. Those are available for both students and faculty. One thing to point out here is that there is built-in help. So when you do click on this link, it will take you to our help for students, or if you're an instructor, it'll take you to our help guide for instructors. But one thing that's really nice about this help can also trigger a submit workflow for like accommodations, or if a student needs help. So if there is a dedicated department there at UDC for when it comes to accessibility issues and things of that sort, if students are having problems with some of the alternative formats or the original source material, they could easily click help, and it would provide a little drop down box where they could add in some commentary and request help. And then that would go to an email distribution on your end for someone to receive and be able to triage and process those requests or support tickets, essentially. But that is something else that we can also support. The default behavior is it just goes to Blackboard Help, but we could also have it go to someone there on campus to provide support for that. So with that, I wanted to pause here and see if there's any questions from the group. I know, Lisa, you've done a great job, and Monica as well. Welcome back. I've done a great job of answering questions as they come up, but wanted to see if anyone wanted to come on the mic and ask any questions.
Hi, Jake. This is David. Great work and great job on this workshop. There was a question from Jack. Does Ally also work for tests?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. So let's see, Blackboard Ally checklist. This will tell us everything that the Ally checks within the system. Let's see. So right now we do documents, which is like a native page inside of Blackboard. We do folders, learning modules, a link to a form, web links, and embedded LTI applications. So right now we don't scan assignments or tests or discussion boards. It would just be purely, I would say, like lesson material within the course. Okay. Any other questions? And I'll post that in the chat for everyone to review. So the original files are always there. We don't do anything with your original content. That's purely up to you. So Dr. Brown, if you found like a document, let's say this one was overly problematic, and your students were constantly asking for this content to be remediated because it's not OCR'd, you might just replace this original content with the OCR'd version, or maybe the HTML version as default. That way students don't have to do that extra step of downloading one of these two formats, because that original material is problematic. Some faculty like to have that original material just because of the way it's presented or structured. They want to keep that integrity of that, and that's perfectly acceptable. But we don't do anything with the original content. All we do is provide additional representations of that original source material, so alternative formats. And these files are not stored on your Blackboard environment. They don't take away from storage or impact your storage in any way whatsoever. So this is another benefit here, is that you as a faculty member, you don't have to worry about, your Blackboard administrator saying you have to remove some files from your course from time to time, or clean it up. In that sense, because of Ally, Ally has all of these files out on Amazon Web Services, which is separate from your Blackboard environment. And so, as those files are there, they're not impacting any of your storage. We're not doing anything with your original content. It just you could think of these as just hyperlinks to a file that you could download and make use of. So from a copyright perspective, with that, it's a bit of the honor system. If there's something that needs to be flagged, or can't have derivative works, things of that sort, faculty can flag that, where we can disable alternative formats for those particular files. So if there's for some reason not permissions or an option for you to be able to do that, you can easily disable those alternative formats. Usually with copyright laws, things of that, by transforming a document, making it more accessible, doesn't violate that, from my understanding. It's just changing the way that document is viewed or represented. And then from an accessibility perspective, you have ADA and Section 508 and different legal protections for those people, for people that way. So you wouldn't really be able to prevent people from, not being able to use this in certain cases, because it's a human right. Let's see. Does Ally work for YouTube? So for YouTube videos, we will check those for captions. If they're using captions, then that's great. If not, Ally will flag that as part of its accessibility checking or scanning capability. For videos that you've uploaded natively into Blackboard, we don't automatically provide captions for those. There's a lot of automated captioning solutions out there, and what we found is that the quality is just not that great or where we would like it to be. So we haven't developed something in-house yet, or have found a partner that we felt that could achieve the level of quality that we want. And if you'll probably notice this with Google, with its captioning for YouTube videos, it's probably 80% accurate. If we were to put a percentage on it, depending on the video content itself, and so we want to make sure that we can get at to like the 99% or 100% when it comes to transcribing or captioning content. And so the technology is just not there today to be able to support that. It's something that we are looking, as technology evolves over time, we'll revisit that. David, you have a comment? Let's see. No, let's see. Dr. Brown, do you have quick tips for contrasting correctly? And then is there a file size limit? I'm not aware of any file size limits. I would have to follow up on that one. I'm not aware of any file size limits. When it comes to contrasting, contrast issues and how to fix that, I would rely on that tool that was shared earlier in the guide here on the network security documentation. Let me go in here, contrast issues, not this one. Here we go. Let's see. You'll see here in the there's some software that you can download, and we'll go ahead and post that in the chat. This tool here will help you understand what colors are okay to use if you're using kind of a background color and a foreground color, and it will help you understand whether or not that's meeting WCAG standards, and and that will help you, fix that. Now, let's see. Get some other questions. Michael B, how about if a file is password protected? we're not able to scan files that are password protected. So you would need to make sure that password is removed for Ally to be able to scan that file and provide those alternative formats. And then should all my files be 100%? I don't think that's realistic. There are going to be just some things that you're not going to be able to fix depending on the source material. And so you should try and strive and be able to fix as much as you can to help improve the overall accessibility of that document. But if not, you know, there are going to be those alternative formats. So a good example of this is this PDF document here. I can increase the accessibility of this PDF by 12% if I were to add a language set. I would be able to increase the score up to 95% if I was to tag it. And this would show 100%, you know, based off if I probably fixed both of these issues. But there's still other accessibility issues in here, but it's not something that a faculty member could easily fix, such as the 2-column layout, because the source material is a PDF and you can't edit PDFs. And so the only thing that we could really do to help improve the accessibility of this is by doing these two things, by tagging it, which provides a better experience for a screen reader, and then also adding a language set, which can also help with the voice that is used as it's reading aloud the content to the learner that's reliant on the screen reader. But as I shared earlier, there's mobile issues with this. There's there's the 2-column layout, but that's a lot of that has to do with it being just a PDF document, and then also with you know, how it was designed or structured. And so in that particular case, while you could go through the effort of tagging this PDF and changing the language set and increasing this from 6% to 100% for this document, we'd probably just recommend that our learners just download the HTML version, because it's not only going to solve those first two issues, but it's also going to help improve the mobile experience of it and the screen reader readability of that content from going from a 2-column layout to a 1-column layout. So there are going to be some instances where it's just better just to rely on the alternative version that Ally has created. But that's going to be dependent on the source material, and that's something that will come with time and experience as you become more familiar with accessibility issues. Cheryl, if I copy my course content, will the alternative formats also carry over? Yeah, so anytime you can fix something in your course and you bring over that content into the next iteration of your course, all of those fixes will be brought over along with all of those alternative formats. You're not going to have to redo all that work over again. So anything that you fix will be carried over into future courses if you copy that content. And those alternative formats do have a shelf life of about 30 days. And so after 30 days, we will delete them from our servers. And so the next time a student comes in here, just like we saw with that audio version, it's going to regenerate that audio format every 30 days because we want to make sure that as our machine learning algorithms improve and we do a better job of transforming content, students are getting the latest and greatest or the best version of that alternative format. So every 30 days, there's typically a refresh of the files. So when someone comes in here and clicks on it to download it, it's going to generate a new version of that audio or a new version of that HTML EPUB version based off of the latest version of our machine learning algorithms. So again, you as an instructor wouldn't need to do anything. The alternative formats are there. We would just generate a fresh copy or a fresh version of that based off of our updated machine learning algorithms. Great questions. All right. Well, it seems like our questions might be slowing down a bit. I will stick around if if needed, but I want to thank you all for your time today. An hour and a half is a long time to be listening to me. And so very much appreciate your questions, that you're staying engaged, asking questions. It shows that you really do care, that you really want to provide a great experience for your students, especially those that struggle with accessibility accommodations or issues, things of that sort. And so I just am so thankful for that and just really do appreciate your time. And, as Blackboard as being your partner, if you do have any questions or, want a dedicated session again in the future, you've got a great team here. Lisa and Monica, as a part of our client experience managers, they're just awesome assets to reach out to, for questions and things of that sort. And I would also be, available to you as well if you have any questions. But really just want to thank you all for your time. We'll continue to manage the chat, but just thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and Jake, I just wanted to follow up. I really appreciate everything that you went over and great questions from the group as well today. So Jake, I just wanted to ask if you had any final thoughts about if someone was interested in improving their own knowledge about accessibility, where would they start?
Yeah,
Or what
so
has worked for you?
Yeah, so something that I really liked is on there's a couple of free courses online, but there's also one that I thought was really well done by edX, accessibility. Let's see, introduction to web accessibility. And I don't know if it's like a free course or you kind of pay as, yeah, it's free. It looks like, yeah, it's free and it's optional upgrade available. I think you pay if you want like a certificate or a badge for like credentialing, but this is a fantastic free course that will just give you a wealth of information. The people that actually design this course have disabilities. So they're people that are reliant on screen readers, that they are using tactile reading devices. So it's just a phenomenal resource because you get to hear, from the mouth of users that are dependent on, the work that we do as faculty to make our courses more accessible, or, these different accessibility technologies. So highly well respected. And this is, put together by W3C, who creates the WCAG standard, WCAG 2.1 AA, which is what we use to build out any kind of technology for education. It has to adhere to those minimum set of requirements. That way we can guarantee students with assistive technologies are able to use it. So this is the one that I would highly recommend. If you're going to start anywhere, I would start with this course.
Excellent. Thank you, Jake. And are there any other questions from the group before we conclude today? And if not, Jake, Lisa, and Monica, thank you so much for all your hard work today. This was a wonderful presentation. For everyone that is listening in, this will be recorded so we can share this on our YouTube channel, and we will be sending a follow-up for survey feedback. So thank you very much, and please stay safe. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.